So we're in the middle of a Sky Week trip at the moment in central France. The weather's been amazing. I thought it'd be a good opportunity to go through the riser and the trim systems and the Speedbar for the two wings which we sell most commonly. So that is the BGD Magic motor and the Ozone Roadster 3. So I'm here with my two beautiful assistants, Bruce and Pete. And this is the BGD Magic. Now, we all get given a manual, but none of us ever read it, all right? So the most important thing is to read the bloody manual. However, once you've read it, is actually to get practical with your wing and understand how it works. Now, we haven't got a hang test system out here. That's always a good one to use. So Pete's holding up the risers. And what you can see, all we've got here, we've got a Speedbar system on the front, and we've got this trim tab at the back behind this neoprene cover. When you're taking off with this wing, when it's new, it's always nice to have a little bit of trim out, and it's important that they're symmetrical, okay? So you have a little look. I like on this wing to about a thumb's width from this stitching to this buckle. We're just checking that this is correct. Okay, now that would be when we're flying at sea level or when there's a little bit of wind to help us. Now, the great thing about this wing is you can fully trim it out. For example, if you're high altitude or if there really is nil wind, and that's going to release the pressure on the trailing edge, okay, on the, in this case, the C's and the B risers. Okay, as you can see, these mailons no longer line up. And if I now pull the trim tab back on, you'll see that the mailons do start to line up. So that's a neutral trim. And that is something you would do if maybe there's a bit of wind and you don't want that wing coming up too fast, okay? But rarely do we use that. So the importance on this is to make sure that they're symmetrical. So you're not going round and round in circles. So these power risers have two options for where you can mount your brake line pulley system. This, because we fly the beautiful Parajet Maverick, is a low hang point setup. If you're on a high hang point setup, you would remove your pulley system down to here, and then you have this particular magnet keeper for your brake line. We're not going to use that. Actually, in flight, if you put that on, it actually applies a little bit of brake on the trailing edge. So we use the upper magnet keeper. So it's very important to practice on the ground. It's very important you have your beautiful assistants holding up so you can actually get to do this before you do it up in the air. So what Bruce is going to do is going to place his toggle on the magnet, having got off to a nice safe height. I've always said 500 foot, but you know, it depends on what your gauge of safety is. You go park the toggle, you're going to decelerate, and now you're going to come to your trim system, which we're going to slow down, and you're going to release the trim. And there we are. It's that simple on this wing. And now you're going to go back onto the toggle. And obviously, you're going to do it on the other side as well. Now, on this particular wing, it's actually possible to do them both at the same time because you haven't got any lines which create friction, which slow down the release. Now, the thing to be aware of is these can slip. It's very unlikely. And if you ever were worried about these slipping with an aged wing, what you can do is you have a trim tab which can go in to the carabiner here, and now it's going to be locked out on about, yeah, that thumb width distance from the stitching to the buckle. On this particular wing, you can actually have your toggle in your hand when you pull the trimmers on, because it's very easy. So let's demonstrate the two options. One is without parking the toggle, putting the brake on, putting the trimmer on nice and slow. Yeah. Now the other option, which is the preferred option, is yet again parking the toggle, pulling that trimmer back on slow, and bada bing. Now sometimes it's very stiff, and as you'll see on the other wing, you actually can benefit from using two hands, and we'll talk about that on the Roadster 3. These are the risers for the Ozone Roadster 3, and as you can see, they're just a little bit different to the BGD Magic. The reason they're different is because they allow you to create a reflex system in the wing. And a reflex system is where, by releasing the trimmer, you are allowing the trailing edge to rise up. And this is what moves the center of pressure forward to the leading edge and makes the glider fly faster through the air. My preferred setting during takeoff on the Ozone Roadster 3 is between the first and second white stitch. I don't like going all the way to the red line, and this is the maximum you should ever take off and land on the Ozone Roadster 3, because beyond that it is engaging the reflex system. The reason I don't like going all the way to the red stitch, because I feel that means the wing comes up almost a bit too fast and you lose the sensitivity through the brake lines. However, here you get the best of both worlds. You still allow the wing to come up and not hang back, and you maintain a nice amount of sensitivity through the brake lines. Now, when you go full slow, you'll notice that it completely changes the setup of your mailons here. And what's happening here is it's actually making the wing effectively be more in that position, and that's going to make everything slower. Hence why they advise you to go on full slow for when you're paragliding with this wing. So it's important to do this on the ground, because these trimmers have these white stitches in which are designed to stop the trimmers from slipping, and it can make it quite hard in flight in order to release. So Bruce is going to go through the same procedure. He's going to have his toggle, he's going to raise it up, he's going to put it on the magnet, he's going to be into wind, he's going to be at a nice safe altitude, he's going to decelerate. He might need to use two hands in order to do this. So that's slowing it down, and now we're going to release. And you can see it gets stuck on these white stitches, which is a good thing, because you do not want these slipping when you take off or when you're at low altitude doing maneuvers. So now you wouldn't be using your brakes in order to steer. So you park, your brakes remain parked, and you go onto your wingtip steering system, which is just a little magnet here. And the great thing about this is it's stitched in to your stabilo line. Now, what it does is it's pulling the wingtip in like this and slightly at the back, but it's not distorting our reflex system. And if you look up, you can see very different setup with your mailons now. Okay, you've really released, there's a lot of speed range here, and you really have released quite a lot of pressure, and you've now decreased your angle of attack quite considerably, so much so that the trailing edge is now actually kicking up, okay, creating that reflex tail. It's a gentle input, it's not aggressive, and you can look up and you can see that it's just biting into the wingtip and just making a gradual turn. So the traditional thought process is that when you've eased out your trimmers on full to the reflex system, you do not use your brakes. It doesn't feel right. What you'll feel is you'll feel hardly any pressure and then lots of pressure, and it just feels strange. And it feels like you're trying to pull on a brick, and it just doesn't feel right at all. And that's because you're taking your trailing edge, which is meant to be in this position, down to there, and it just doesn't feel right. So there's a lot of give in your brake lines initially, and then you meet resistance. And you've really got to pull on it hard for it to go wrong. I don't recommend anyone tries to do this. However, the traditional mind is park your brakes, use your wingtip steering, use your weight shift in order to steer. Do not use this low, because if you do have an engine failure, or if the conditions do change, you're going to have to pull in your trim system and release your speed bar. That's easy, but the trim system takes a bit of time. So it's good to practice pulling these things in symmetrically at the same time and releasing them. But as we pointed out, you can't always do that every time because of these anti-slip devices. Okay, so one thing which paramotor pilots very rarely use, especially at the beginning of their flying career, is a speed bar. Now what you have here is a very simple setup on the Parajet Maverick. You have the pulley system 1, pulley system 2, then you have a ring, and then you have the actual bar which goes on the Velcro here. Now, in order to get this thing set up properly, we need to work with other people. We need to work as a team. So what we're going to do, we're going to fit these two Brummel hooks together. Pete's holding up the risers, trying to give as much tension and real life example as possible. And what Bruce is now going to do is, with his heel, he's going to release the speed bar, and if you push through, it will push through the Velcro. And now what we're looking to achieve is, when he pushes on full speed bar, we want to see whether these match up, and they do. And his legs are fully extended. Okay, now bend your knees a little bit. And what we can see now is that we can get full bar and it's symmetrical on both sides. What we don't want is to suddenly find, if you bend your knees, that even in your legs fully extended, it doesn't match up the full way, or one is longer or shorter than the other. And the other thing we don't want is, with our legs even kind of half extended, for it to be on full. Okay, so it is a trial and error, and it is something you need to set up and do on the ground first. So we're flying along, we come to the end of our cross country. First thing we're going to do is retract our legs nice and slowly. Okay, and then we're going to pull the trimmers back onto neutral or our landing position. And now we can go back onto our toggles, but before we do that, we've got to stow away our speed bar system. And there's a really nice Velcro setup which allows you to do that quite easily in flight.
On our Dudek paramotor harness, we have Velcro on the upper and on the lower side of your harness. So what you can do on takeoff, when you have time, you can be on the ground, you can roll the speed bar up and connect this Velcro so that it's in there nice and tight and you're not going to trip on takeoff, and then just tuck the speed bar back to make sure it's not going to get in the way, and you check all of that before you take off. In flight, however, if you can roll it up, it's useful. If not, you have this Velcro on this side. It's going to be looser, but it's okay to just place the speed bar on there and connect the Velcro. It's much easier to use this in flight. To adjust your speed bar properly, to ensure you can use your full speed range, you can loosen the knot on your Bramble hooks and pull the string through. So I'm going to imagine I couldn't reach the full range, so I'm now tightening my speed bar line, and I'm just going to pull it through. So now if I was to push speed bar, I'm not going to have the full motion, but you can see with much less leg movement I reach the full range of the speed bar. And the same applies in reverse to loosen it. And you must always make sure your hooks are either connected to your wing or properly tucked behind your seat, such that you don't have it go into the propeller when you start.
So I hope this video has been useful. As ever, read your manual, because every wing is different. And if you've got any questions, don't hesitate to get in contact with us.